Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, distinguished postgraduate students, esteemed organizational executives, valued colleagues, and friends. You are welcome to lecture 6 of the Research Methods Across Disciplines lecture series. The next two slides provide relevant social media links for this lecture series and information about the series lecturer, Professor Linus Oswagu. I am Linus Oswagu, PhD valedictorian, full professor of marketing at Veritas University Abuja in Nigeria, former chair of the Institutional Review Board IRB at American University of Nigeria, AUN Yola, a former pioneer vice chancellor of a university in Nigeria. I bring to this lecture series over 3 decades of experience in teaching, research, and university leadership. I've had the privilege of building academic institutions from the ground up, working as group head at Research International Lagos in Nigeria, and supervising many postgraduate students in Nigeria, South Africa, Zimbabwe, and Afghanistan, among many other places, thereby giving me first-hand experience of the issues we will discuss in today's lecture. Recall that in Lecture 5, we explored problem formulation and systematic literature review in research. Today, in Lecture 6, we begin our experience of research design. By the end of this Lecture 6, you'll be able to choose the right research design family for your research question and justify your choice. So, let us continue our research journey. Stay curious, stay methodologically rigorous and flexible, and stay contextually relevant. Let us begin. Enjoy. The slide you're looking at is Research Methods Across Disciplines, a comprehensive lecture series for postgraduate students and organizational executives. The slide also shows my institutional affiliation and department, my email addresses, my LinkedIn profile link, my Google Scholar profile link, and YouTube channel link for the entire lecture series. The slide you're looking at has my profile, my academic background, my research interests, my LinkedIn profile link, my Google Scholar profile link, and my current contact department regarding department and institutional affiliation. Welcome once again to Lecture 6. Today we examine research design, which is a strategic framework that links your research question to your research methods, analysis, and conclusions. By the end of this lecture, you'll be able to define research design as a strategic framework connecting research questions to your research methods. You compare the 3 major research design families: quantitative, qualitative, and mixed methods. You will apply a decision framework to select the appropriate research design for specific research questions. You will evaluate the strengths and limitations of each research design, and you will justify research design choices in the context of Global South research context. The key takeaway is that research design is the most consequential decision in any research investment. You are therefore advised to match the research design to the research question before you collect data. Let's make a self-assessment check here. What research designs are you using or considering to use in your discipline? The next slide provides key literature supporting Lecture 6. The key literature discusses or presents overarching overall research design frameworks, quantitative research designs, qualitative research designs, mixed method research design, and examples and illustrations from the Global South and the colonized research context. The takeaway here is that if you read these sources alongside the lecture, full details of these sources are presented in the reference section of this lecture. Let's even pose the question, what is research design? We conceptualize research design as an overall framework for conducting research. It is a strategic framework or blueprint connecting research questions, data collection, data analysis, and conclusions. Research design comprises the major issues in research, dealing with data collection, data analysis, interpretation, sampling, measurement, and other cognate issues. Let's look at research design versus research methods. Research design is not the same thing as research methods conceptually. Research design is the overall research strategy or framework, while research methods are the specific techniques such as sampling, research instruments, and analysis used within the research design framework. Research methods are subsets or content within research designs. Therefore, research question leads to research design choice, which leads to research methods, which leads to data analysis. This is the connection. Let's give an example here. Research question, does training improve performance in an organization? Research design. You may use a quasi-experimental research design. Research methods. You may conduct pre-test and post-test survey. Data analysis. You may conduct statistical data analysis. Key takeaway here is that research design is the blueprint. Research methods are the tools within the blueprint. Let's make a self-assessment here. Can you distinguish between research design and research methods in your own research work, in your discipline? There are three major research designs. These are quantitative research design, which are associated with numbers, measurement, and statistics. The second one is qualitative research design, which are associated with words, meanings, and interpretations. The third major one is mixed method research design, which integrates quantitative and qualitative approaches. Let's present a research design decision guideline. Issues or questions to consider here include how many, how much, what relationship. If these are your questions in research, the research design to use is quantitative research design methods. The second one deal with meaning, experience, and process. If your questions are concerned with meaning, experience, and process, the research design is the qualitative research design methods. The third one is that what and why, how and why. If your questions deal with what and why, how and why, the research design methods to use is mixed methods research design. Let's look at some of the strengths of quantitative research design, and these include: it is generalizable from the sample to the population, it is objective and replicable, it is efficient for large research samples. The associated weaknesses of quantitative research design include: it can be reductionist, it may miss context and meaning, it requires large samples with the associated cost implications. Let's situate this in the global south with an example. Large-scale surveys such as those done by the Avrometer and Demographic and Health Surveys (DHS) use quantitative research design to generate findings across many countries. Let's look at strengths of qualitative research design, and these include: it has depth and richness, it captures context and meaning, it emphasizes the research participants' or respondents' voice and view. Some of its weaknesses include: it is time-consuming, also it is labor-intensive, and it has a limited generalizability. Let's give the Global South example. Ethnographies of informal street traders and women can provide insights and meanings which quantitative surveys research design cannot. The strengths and weaknesses of mixed methods research design include: 1. It offers both breadth and depth. 2. It enables triangulation of research methods, that's combination of research methods. 3. It is practical and decision relevant. Some of the weaknesses of mixed methods research design include: it demands intense time and resources. 2. It requires dual quantitative and qualitative expertise. And 3. It poses some methodological integration challenges or issues. Let's give a Global South example. Mobile money studies combine large quantitative surveys with follow-up individual depth interviews (IDIs) to explain adoption. The key takeaways is that you should choose your research design method from your research question, not the other way around, or not from your comfort zone. Let's give a self-assessment check. Which research design method best fits your research question in your discipline? Let's look at quantitative research designs in depth. The four main quantitative research designs include experimental, quasi-experimental, survey, and correlational research designs. Let's discuss quantitative research design 1, which is experimental research design. Experimental research design tests causal relationships using random assignments. When do we use experimental research design? It is used when you need to establish causality through randomization. Let's give an example. Research example. Duflo, Kramer, and Robinson 2011 randomly assigned 1,230 maize farmers in Western Kenya to small, time-limited fertilizer discounts in order to isolate the causal effect on fertilizer adoption. Quantitative research design 2 is called quasi-experimental research design. Quasi-experimental research design tests causal relationships when randomization is impossible in research. When do we use quasi-experimental research design? It is used when you need causal evidence but cannot randomize. Let's provide research example. Jack and Suri in 2014 used the staggered rollout of M-Pesa agents across Kenya as a natural experiment, showing that mobile money helped households smooth consumption against shocks. In this research, by comparing households that gained early access to agents with those that gained access to agents later, the researchers isolated the impact of M-Pesa itself rather than just comparing users and non-users who might differ in other ways. This was the researchers' clever way of establishing a cause and effect relationships, even when the researchers, could not randomize. In such cases, quasi-experimental research design can be used. Quantitative research design 3 is survey research design. Survey research design describes the characteristics of a research population of interest. When do we use a survey research design? It is used when you want to describe distributions, attitudes, or relationships among others. Let's give an example. Afrobarometer surveyed citizens' attitudes across more than 39 African countries using standardized, nationally representative questionnaire. Specifically, Afrobarometer, which is a leading independent Pan-African research network, conducts public attitude surveys on democracy, governance, economy, poverty, and corruption, among others, across the African continent using survey research design. Let's look at quantitative research design 4, and it's called correlational research design. Correlational research design examines relationships between variables without manipulation. When we use correlational research design, it is used when you want to explore relationships, not causation. Let's provide an example. Boayedi et al. 2023 modeled how housing services and safety correlate with neighborhood well-being across South African townships. The study explored the statistical association between neighborhood conditions comprising housing, services, safety, and residents' well-being. This study is an example of correlational research design. Let's look at research in action with regard to choosing a quantitative research design. Researchers wanted to study the impact of digital literacy training on small and medium enterprises' performance in Lagos, Nigeria. The associated constraint is that training is already implemented, therefore, no randomization. However, the need of the research is to establish causality, and a 6-month timeline applies for the research. The choosing research design. The researcher used a quasi-experimental research design with a matched comparison group. In this research, the treatment group were SMEs that received the training. The comparison group for the research, SMEs were compared or matched on size, sector, and location. The performance measure for the research. Performance was measured in this research before and after digital literacy training using difference in difference method DID. See the work of Becker et al. 2025. The key takeaway is that quantitative research designs range from descriptive to causal. In all research situations, you are advised to let the research question determine the research design to be chosen. Let's make a self-assessment check here. Which quantitative research design would you use for your research question in your discipline? Let's look at qualitative research designs. The major qualitative research designs include phenomenology, ethnography, grounded theory, and case study. Let's discuss qualitative research design 1, which is phenomenology. It explores lived experience. For example, what is it like to experience X? When do we use phenomenology? It is used in research when you want to understand the essence of a lived experience. Let's give an example. What is the lived experience of first-time women entrepreneurs in Ghana's informal economy? This was a qualitative research study aimed at exploring the personal human stories and subjective realities of a specific group of women entrepreneurs in Ghana. See the work of Api et al. 2025. Qualitative research design 2 is called ethnography. Ethnography studies cultures and communities via immersion in the context. When do we use ethnography? Ethnography is used in research when you want to understand cultural patterns and norms of research interest. Let's provide an example. How do border, that is motorcycle taxi riders in Kampala in Uganda, organize their work and networks? This kind of research aims to understand the internal workings of Kampala's border motorcycle riders. Let's look at qualitative research design 3, and it's called grounded theory. Grounded theory in research builds theory from data. Its primary purpose is to generate a new theory about a social process rather than testing existing theories or hypotheses. The most important rule of grounded theory qualitative research method is that the theory must be grounded in the data. This means that the theory emerges inductively from real-world experiences, words, and actions of the research participants or respondents, rather than being imposed by the researchers' preconceived ideas, hypotheses, or theory. When do we use ethnography? When do we use grounded theory? Grounded theory is used in research when a researcher wants to develop new theory from the ground up. Let's provide an example. How do women entrepreneurs in Lagos, Nigeria navigate business challenges confronting them? Let's look at qualitative research design 4. This is called case study. Case study research design investigates a specific entity or system in depth. Generally, a case study in research is an empirical inquiry that investigates a contemporary or modern phenomenon of interest, that is the case, in depth and within its real-world context, especially when the boundaries between the phenomenon of research interest and the context are not clear. Case study is the preferred method for answering how and why research questions, especially when the researcher has a little or no control over the events or issues being studied. When do we use case study? Case study research design is used when you want to understand a bounded system in depth. Let's provide an example. How did the Dangote Group build Pan-African supply chain and manufacturing capacity? Let's provide research in action with regard to choosing a qualitative research design. The researcher wants to understand how women entrepreneurs in Accra's informal markets navigate business challenges. Research design options are phenomenology, for exploring the lived experience of entrepreneurship; ethnography is perhaps for studying market culture and practices; narrative, this is perhaps for capturing individual stories of success and struggles women entrepreneurs in Ghana undergo; case study, this is perhaps for studying one specific market business in depth in Ghana. The research design chosen for this is phenomenology, which focuses or emphasizes lived experience and meaning making. Key takeaway here is that you should choose your qualitative research design from what you want to understand. Let's make a self-assessment check. Which qualitative research design best fits your research question in your discipline? Let's look at mixed methods research design. Mixed methods research design combines quantitative and qualitative research design approaches. Major mixed method research designs include convergent, sequential explanatory, and sequential exploratory. Let's explain mixed method research design 1, which is convergent. Convergent research design collects quantitative and qualitative data simultaneously and compares the research results. When do we use convergent mixed method research design? Convergent research design is used when you want to triangulate or combine research findings. Let's give an example. In a Kenyan clinic study, a patient survey and in-depth interviews, IDIs, that's individual depth interviews, can be conducted at the same time and compared. Let's look at mixed method research design 2, which is sequential explanatory research design. Sequential explanatory research design collects quantitative data first, then qualitative data to explain it. When do we use sequential explanatory research design in research? Sequential explanatory research design is used when you want to explain unexpected quantitative research results. Let's give an example. A quantitative survey research can find a research result of low product adoption by customers. A follow-up qualitative research via individual depth interview IDI reveals a reason for the low product adoption. This is an example of sequential explanatory research design. Let's look at mixed method research design 3, which is sequential exploratory research design. Sequential exploratory research design collects qualitative data first, then quantitative data to test it. When do we use sequential exploratory research design? It is used when you want to develop a research instrument or theory. Let's provide an example. Qualitative research via individual depth interview produces some themes. A follow-up quantitative survey then measures the themes across a larger research sample. This is an example of sequential exploratory research design. Let's give a research in action with respect to mixed methods research example. The study is mobile money adoption in rural Tanzania, and see the work of Jack and Suri 2014. Research design used. Sequential explanatory research design comprising the following. Phase 1 quantitative, which involved survey of 1,200 respondents on trust, digital literacy, and adoption. Finding. It was found that trust predicts adoption, yet adoption was low in two high trust communities associated with the research. In phase 2 of the research, which was qualitative, 30 individual depth interviews were conducted in those two communities with low adoption. The associated finding, it was found that savings groups compete. That is, mobile money was seen as for individuals, not our group. Integration of the two findings. Trust does not predict mobile money adoption universally. The qualitative finding explains the situations or boundary conditions when this happens. Let's look at a key takeaway here, and which is that mixed methods research design delivers breadth and depth, but demands careful integration. Let's provide self-assessment check. Which mixed methods research design fits your research question in your discipline? Let's look at research design decision tree. I want you to use the decision tree on the next slide to use the research design that fits your research or study. You can start from your research question, then follow the branch that matches your goal. This work is adapted from Creswell and Creswell 2018. Number 1 is the quantitative research design. This is for measurement, testing, or generalization, and include experimental, quasi-experimental, and survey as discussed previously. Number 2 is qualitative research design. This is for meaning, experience, or context, and include phenomenology, ethnography, grounded theory, and case study as discussed before. Number 3 is mixed method, and this is used when you need both breadth and depth, and include sequential explanatory, sequential exploratory, and convergent as discussed previously. This is the decision tree for research design decision. You start from what your research question is. Is it about measurement, testing, or generalization? You use quantitative. And within quantitative, you ask the question, is random assignment possible? If yes, you use experimental design. If random assignment is not possible, you use quasi-experimental or survey design. With regard to your research question, is it about meaning, experience, or context? If it is, you use qualitative research design. And the associated question is, do you want to describe If yes, use phenomenology or ethnographic research design. Do you want to build theory? If yes, use grounded theory research design. Do you want an in-depth case? If yes, use the case study research design. With regard to the research question still, do you need both breadth and depth? If the answer is yes, you use mixed method research design. Do you need explanation? If yes, use sequential explanatory. Do you need exploration? If yes, use sequential exploratory. Do you need both? If yes, use convergent research design. The key takeaway is that let your research question drive the research design choice. Let's make a self-assessment check. Where does your research question in your discipline fit on the decision tree explained previously? Let's discuss qualitative and mixed method research design in relation to the Global South. Global South research settings are diverse, plural, and often understudied. Therefore, research methodology must fit the context rather than the reverse. Let's discuss reasons for qualitative and mixed method research design in the Global South. And these include cultural sensitivity. The local meanings and norms generally associated with the Global South require qualitative research approaches. Number two, limited research. Many Global South phenomena are understudied, therefore exploration via qualitative research methods is needed. Reason number three, contextual complexity. Many Global South social phenomena are complex and embedded in place and community. Reason number three for using a qualitative and mixed method research in the Global South is associated with power dynamics. Participatory research methods in the Global South help to address power imbalances characterizing the context in Global South. Reason number five, colonial legacies. The colonial research emphasizes Global South local voices of views and knowledge systems. And we think a qualitative and mixed method research design are appropriate for this. Let's provide an example. Township development research projects. Studies of housing and education in South African townships often combine mixed method research designs involving one, exploratory interviews with residents to highlight relevant issues of research interest. Two, descriptive surveys to quantify housing quality. Three, explanatory regression to test links between housing and educational outcomes. This mixing of research methods makes associated research findings contextually rich and statistically robust. See the work of Moayedi et al. 2023. Key takeaway here is that in the Global South, qualitative and mixed method research designs are often not just acceptable but essential. Let's make self-assessment check here. How does your research design account for local context in your discipline? Let's look at executive decision framework regarding choosing research design for organizational research questions. For our executive audience, here is a practical framework for matching research design choices to organizational research questions. In this slide presented There are three columns comprising research design, when to use them, and associated examples. In survey research design, you use it when you need to measure distributions. An example is customer satisfaction, Afrobarometer attitude surveys, among others. In experimental research design, you use it when you need to test causality. A/B pricing test, fertilizers, randomized control trials in Kenya, among others, are examples. In quasi-experimental research design, you use it when you cannot randomize. Examples include policy impact, M-PESA rollout in Kenya, among others. Qualitative research design, you use it when you need to understand meaning. And examples include why customers switch, Accra women, market women entrepreneurs discussed previously, etc. Mixed methods research design. Use it when you need both breadth and depth. Customer needs and why. Money adoption studies discussed previously. Executive takeaway. Research design choice is the most expensive decision in any research investment. Executives advise, therefore, to invest in order to match the research design choice for business decisions. Let's make a self-assessment check here. What research design would you commission for a high-stakes organizational decision? Let's make a thesis dissertation connection regarding lecture 6. As a postgraduate student, you should choose and justify your thesis dissertation research design choice, linking the choice explicitly to your research question. Let's present sample research design justification statement. This study adopts a sequential explanatory mixed method research design. The quantitative phase, comprising survey of consisting of survey of 500 small and medium enterprises, will be used to identify patterns in technology adoption. The qualitative phase, consisting of 30 follow-up individual depth interviews, will be used to explain why the patterns exist in technology adoption. The sequential explanatory mixed methods research design is appropriate for this research because 1. Both breadth and depth are needed. 2. The research question asks both what and why. 3. Limited prior research in this context requires empirical exploration. The key takeaway here is that your research design choice justification must be explicit and tied to your research question. Let's make a self-assessment check. Can you justify your research design choice in relation to your research question in your discipline? Let's make assessment by testing your understanding of some of the issues discussed in lecture 6. Question 1. Which research design is strongest for establishing causal inference? The answer is experimental research design with random assignment. Question 2. A researcher studying the lived experience of women entrepreneurs in Ghana would most likely use, the answer is phenomenology, which focuses on lived experience. Question 3. Which mixed method research design collects both types of data simultaneously and compares them? The answer is convergent, which focuses on simultaneous connection and comparison. Question 4 is a true or false answer. Question 4 requires a true or false answer. Research design is the same as research methods. The answer is false because research design is the overall strategy or framework, while research methods are specific techniques in the research design. Question 5. When random assignment is impossible, which research design is the strongest alternative? The answer is quasi-experimental, which is the next best research design to experiment. Let's give a skill builder exercise, and here is the task. Sketch a one-page outline matching a research question in your discipline to a research design with a short justification and one supporting citation in the literature. Key takeaway is that matching research question to research design is a core research skill. Let's summarize lecture 6. The salient points in lecture 6. We define research design as the strategic framework connecting research questions to research methods. Also, we compare 3 research design methods, which are quantitative, qualitative, and mixed methods. In addition, we examine specific research designs comprising experimental, quasi-experimental, survey, correlational, phenomenology, ethnography, grounded theory, case study, and mixed methods. Also, we apply the decision tree to select or choose appropriate research designs to use. We explain why qualitative and mixed methods are often essential in global South research contexts. There are some key concepts associated with lecture 6. These concepts are research design, which is a strategic blueprint or framework linking research questions, research methods, data analysis, and conclusion. 3 research design methods are quantitative, qualitative, and mixed methods. Quantitative research designs include experimental, quasi-experimental, survey, and correlation. Qualitative research design include phenomenology, ethnography, grounded theory, and case study. Mixed method research designs include convergent, sequential explanatory, and sequential exploratory. Research decision guideline. Let the research question decide the research design choice for researchers and executives. Global South relevance of research design. Qualitative and mixed methods research designs are relevant in the Global South setting because of cultural context and the need for the colonial voice of views in research. Let's preview lecture 7. In lecture 7, we will dive deeper into specific research designs, such as experimental, quasi-experimental, case study, and longitudinal. We urge you to stay curious, stay methodologically rigorous and flexible, and stay contextually relevant. Let's continue the research journey. Thank you.